Good evening, folks. Happy Friday. Hope you all had a great week. It's my Saturday. Welcome to Something More Than Gibberish. Today, our feature goes by the name of Nikki Viveca. She's from my local city of Melbourne, although currently living in Sydney in a theatre show that's happening in my neighbouring city, Sydney. I was fortunate to witness Nikki perform live at open mics when she was here in Melbourne, and to say that she's talented is an understatement. Nikki acts in a lot of theatre plays. She's got quite an extensive acting background, and her poetry is amazing. So, as you are aware, on this show we feature selected poets to showcase their work, their journey into writing, their recitals, which we then expound on together with my co-host Gemini, who should be in the room shortly, hopefully. Hi, Midnight. Welcome to the room. Dorian, Nikki's in the room. I'm just waiting for my co-host. He's probably running around like a headless chook as normal. Trying to get a bit dodged between work and home. Look, I just can't tell you enough about how much I value and respect Nikki's work. A couple of opportunities that I was blessed with to hear her recitals at open mics were just astounding, to say the least. And looking forward to showcasing Nikki and a fellow poet from my home city of Melbourne. Nikki, if you'd like to put in a request to come up, I can drag you up, and then hopefully Gemini won't be too far away. No doubt she'll want to have a shot at me about my comment about her running around like a headless chook, which is an Australian term for chicken. And Gemini's just entered the room too, so if Nikki, Gemini, if you can put in a request to come up, I'll bring you up on screen and we can start the show rolling.
Hello, sir.
Hello, Miss Gemini, how are you?
I almost had an adult nap.
Adult nap. I did tell the audience that I bet you Gemini Fox is running around like a headless chook. That's chicken for in Australian terms.
You see, right off. I was trying to be nice, right off. And I confessed. And I was about to apologize, but here you go. Calling me
Hello, Nikki.
in
Hi, Ryan.
gibberish.
I'm glad I'm not the
Gemini.
only one who starts her day with technical difficulties. I tend to.
Yeah, he's pretty bold with his insults.
Look, I even got bold on my t-shirt. Look.
Oh, heaven's sakes. And
How
why
are you,
are
Nikki?
you me?
I'm good. It's been an interesting time. I just finished the big show in Sydney, and I've sort of been a little bit on the move since then. So I'm currently up in rural Queensland, of all places, but I have family up here, so I've been up visiting them. So I don't know if you can hear the kookaburras in the background. You're getting full of the experience out the window.
They're not coming through the through the audio. which is a pity because Gemini, they're a unique bird for in Australia, kookaburras, and they got the most. It's almost like a laugh they're chirping.
Mm.
Beautiful bird, unique to Australia,
Yeah,
like most of our
they're very
species.
distinctive. Like they get used in sound effects on jungle movies and stuff like that because they
Yeah,
sound so exotic. You know, not in Australia. You know.
Maybe they just make
yeah.
that sound when Rainier passes by.
Oh, here she goes, firing bullets. So, Nikki, I'm glad Gemini is my co-host. She's from Florida,
Hi,
um, and
Gemini.
Hello, love.
this is show 31, I believe, which so we've been going for quite a while, coming up to about 10 months or something like that, and it's been growing. So, in this show, this is all about you. This is all about
Oh,
featuring your journey through acting, through your poetry, through your recitals. And I'm glad, personally, I'm glad the show is over because that means you're closer to coming back home to our home city. We miss you at Open Lives and hearing your performances. So tell us about you. How did it all start? Where did it begin and what were the drivers?
talking specifically about poetry, about sort of performance in
Both,
general.
both, everything as an entertainer, in your acting, your theatrical plays, your poetry, because I think what I really found entertaining in the open mics that I'd heard you, the quality of your poems was amazing.
Mm.
It hits some pretty hard truths and realities, but your delivery took it to another level. So I think they really complement each other, you know.
Thank you.
Um, s-
Yeah, well, I started working specifically in poetry. I started how many years ago? So it came out of doing stand-up. I used to do a lot of um, stand-up and improv kind of performance and storytelling. And I was invited to perform some of my that sort of work, like my storytelling work, at a poetry night at Mother Tongue in Melbourne, which is you probably know Mother Tongue. If you don't, it's like it's a big women's performance night, which happens in the northern suburbs of Melbourne. And um, yeah, I've been invited to do this. I've been invited to tell stories at it, but then I saw all the poets getting up and doing poems, and I was like, oh, I want to do one of those. And I had exactly one poem, which is a thing I'd written in a workshop with Candy Bowers. And I'm like, I've got this empowerment poem which I wrote for this workshop about decolonising theatre. So I got up to and did my like empowerment poem at the very end of it, and it was so successful that I was just like, oh well, I'll keep doing that. I'll keep writing poetry. Um, and then then I sort of entered a slam. I was lucky enough to win a slam, which the first time I entered, with a poem which I could sort of improvised on the night. And then after that, I'm like, oh, I better take this seriously, and so I started doing it more. Um, but of course, this comes uh, after years of working in performance, which I've been involved in for most of my life. It's I don't know if you can. Well, you probably can't see the background. I'm sort of up in the country at the moment, which is a part of the world I grew up in. I grew up in rural Queensland. For those of you who don't know Queensland, it's like the Australian answer to the Bible Belt. It's um, a uh, lot of farm territory, a lot of mining, a lot of churches, a lot of Jesus. uh, and I grew up in one of the particularly Jesus-y bits of it. And so when I was, at high school, sort of closet queer kid at the time, and art seemed to be the only way to find sort of self-expression. Like I could see everything around me was particularly sort of, very straight laced, and even more so than when I was growing up, everything was very. If you wore anything anything even slightly different, you'd get like looks down the street. It was that kind of vibe. And then you would see theatre people wear big costumes and express themselves in a more like honest and emotional way. Watch on like late night TV was about the only place I got to see any queer content. It's this gay game show I used to watch in the middle of the night. With Fairy in it, and there were things like that were just like it sort of held for performance as the sort of only way to be yourself really in the world. And you know, like when we talked about theatre, like when we talked about theatre in English class and stuff, it was the only time people sort of talked about diversity or anything like that was in the context of theatre. So there wasn't like a lot of theatre in my hometown, but it was the thing I was always sort of drawn to once I moved to the city and so forth. But yeah, it took a while. It took a while for my sort of career to sort of cycle around, and that's quite a long journey. From I started off doing dramatic acting, gave up on that for a while, lived a very normal life for a few years.
Yeah.
And then I worked in film instead. I went to film school. I did film for a while. Then I got into improv through film, then into comedy, then into poetry, then into burlesque, and then so on. It's sort of like, but there's so many shiny parts of the arts world for me. There's so many different things which draw me that once I was free to do it, I just like sort of kept on grabbing bits at a time. I want to do that, and I want to do that, and I want to do this. And I presume I'll keep doing that for the rest of my life, just like seeing new shiny things.
Yeah. Well, knowing the back blocks of Queensland myself, because I spent 10 years riding around this country on a motorbike, and yes, some of the towns that I went to, there was certainly a lot of come to Jesus moments and town.
Oh yeah.
Theatre didn't, was something like, you'd be disregarded and saying, come on, wake up and smell the coffee and get into some real work and stuff like that, right? With some of those mindsets to break through. So I admire your persistence, which paid off. And now you bring joy to many people that watch you perform. I'm sure I haven't been blessed enough to see any of your theatrical performances, but I'm going by your recitals at open mic. I'm sure it'll be something worth going to see and investing in. So I was really disappointed that this current show that you did was just in Sydney and not brought to Melbourne, because it would have been great.
Well, it was a special event, particularly for the theatre.
Yeah.
There's a theatre in King's Cross called Griffin Theatre, and that's been there since I don't know, like a long time. The 70s even, I think. Stables Theatre have been there. And they sort of need to update it to make it accessible and to like have like more backstage space and have a rehearsal room and various other things. So they're doing this big reconstruction for theatre, and so that's why we had the play there, because they wanted to put on the biggest show they'd ever done to say goodbye to the old theatre. So we did the biggest show they'd ever done, which was like a trilogy of plays. So it was 4.5 hours of theatre. So it was like we worked with Lily Narrow, who's a well-known Australian playwright, and he sort of reworked some of like the plays in this trilogy to turn it into this tight three-play, 4.5 hour experience. And then people just came in like they were going to a Lord of the Rings marathon and just watched.
Oh wow!
Watched all this theatre. It was absolutely massive, and we had a cast of 8 of us doing all the plays. But it was it was very much of the for that space and for that, like as a way to say goodbye to that and to honour the history of that place, because that's been people have been going to theatre for decades in some cases. So there was a lot of emotion saying goodbye to it.
There is a lot of history in King's Cross. For those for our listeners who aren't aware, so in Sydney, this is a normal city street, George Street. During the day, it's just a normal city street, and then at night it comes alive. It's got all the theatre, the clubs, it's our Mardi Gras all happens there, and whatever you want, you can get in King's Cross for night time. And then by morning, by the time 9 a.m. opens, it's just a normal busy street. It transforms at night. It's like going to a carnival every night. There's you
It's
can
interesting.
mingle.
It's not quite what it was when I was growing up.
Yeah,
Like I remember when I was a teenager, like King's Cross was where, like that's where the gays were. If you wanted to find your people, that's where you went.
yeah,
Um, and it was like one of the few places in Australia that had a reputation for like having a queer community. Like there are queer communities everywhere. There's a little underground queer community in my hometown that I was growing up in. But it was like the place, both sort of alluring and a bit scary that you'd run to.
mm,
Like the image of coming out
Orleans.
as queer was like that you'd move to Sydney and you'd live in the Cross, and then you'd probably have to do something disreputable to sustain yourself. It was that kind of image. So I was both drawn and sort of scared of it from time. It's like it's gentrified a bit now, but it's still got a bit of its old
yeah,
days.
It
It's still
sounds
hanging
like
there.
New Orleans. New Orleans was, it's still that place where it's interesting and it's intriguing. There's a lot of mystery and
Mm.
like, but then you kind of walk around do looking like a tourist because yeah, you're susceptible to be a victim to someone who decides that they want to have more than fun that night.
yeah.
It's very interesting. Even without Mardi Gras, it's interesting. So I would be curious to see what King's Cross looks like because it sounds like New Orleans.
Very much so.
Well,
The
it's sort of being taken over by neighbouring suburbs, which are a bit more sort of gentrified.
yeah,
There's like the neighbouring suburb of Pot Point, which is a bit fancier, is like sort of increasing its boundaries as people move over to the gentrified suburbs.
So
Um,
that
through the
where I work right now in Ybor City in
mm,
Tampa, Ybor City is more of a kind of night spot. Um, and they have their clubs, but they have the cobblestone streets. It's a historic district. It's very much party, but now, as you said, it's being gentrified. A lot of a lot of swanky apartments are being built, apartment buildings are being built, and people want to have just enough nightlife
mm,
to sustain that itch that they have, but they want to make it orderly and clean and somewhat quiet. So we have how you call it? We have Pride Month here in Tampa, and it is going to be plastered wall to wall with color for this month, every single night, just about. Especially within between the 14th and the 20th, it's going to be completely plastered. You have events everywhere. There are drag shows everywhere. But they're kind of trying to suppress it to where it's nice, it's quaint, it's quiet, it's something, a little thing to do in Tampa, but not. Um, they just want to make it pretty. Does that make sense?
mm. Yeah, yeah. Like they've generally prettied it up. Like old Mardi Gras used to be a lot edgier than the current version.
yeah,
Hmm.
It's like, but it's had like, but they start as sort of like big protest movement, and then gradually they become sort of worked in as tourist events, and then made sort of prettier and nicer. So like it's always an ongoing debate I find about how much corporate involvement you allow and how much you let the event go mainstream. And if it goes too mainstream, it feels like you're losing the purpose of it, which is but it still has an activist purpose. It still has the purpose of, um, welcoming our community and giving pride to our community. And as soon as it starts being sanitized like that, then there's people who get excluded. Um, so yeah, there's certainly been a lot of strong feelings about it in Melbourne, where I normally live.
Well, here it's so the individuals and individual places like bars and clubs and event spaces, it's like an all-out protest. So um, you have there's on one end you have people who want to keep it corporate and to keep it like we accept everybody, and on the other end is people's like, look at me and see
Mm,
what I'm doing. And then you have the people that are like, I just want to be myself and not be gawked at. So you have all three in one space, and it is just, I can't, there's no word for it. You have one end of the spectrum, you have the other end, and you have the people that are in the middle who are just trying to enjoy their existence.
You're right about how the cross has changed, Nikki. In the 80s, if you stuck to the main drag and minded your own business and didn't hassling people, you were pretty safe. But when you ventured out of George Street to any of the side streets, that was where the dark side lived. And that's bins come alive and shadows move. Now it's all sort of, cleaned up a lot. I guess there was some issues and all with some of the bikie gangs and all that got a bit out of hand. And then they started clamping down on it. And as you said, enroaching of neighbouring suburbs and all that cleaned it up a bit. But it was like a tourist attraction, actually. Anybody, if you went to Sydney, you had to cross. So, yeah. Really admire growing up in a small town in Queensland to break into the areas of the arts that he did as well. It wasn't your straight out film sort of thing, right? So that would have come with its challenges, and congratulations to your perseverance that has got you to where you are.
Thank you.
And I can't wait for you to get back to Melbourne again, personally, just to see you perform again at open mics. Now, I didn't know about the aspects of your slam poetry. Now, apparently, you've done well in that in Melbourne as well, is it?
Yeah, I've done. I recently did one in Sydney. I did Sydney Writers Festival one, Bankstown Poetry Slam, which is a great slam, and I managed to come third, which I felt very happy with because there were so many amazing poets there.
Yeah.
And then I've won a couple in Melbourne. I had the usual beginner's luck, I guess. That my first slam, I turned up. I'd sort of signed up for it in advance. I hadn't been able to write another poem for it, so I still had only one poem, and I needed two. I spent ages trying to write this poem. It wasn't working, but I'm like, well, I've registered for the slam. I'll at least go. And I turned up, and I thought, I'm not going to be able to do this. I don't have a poem. I'll just watch. And probably my name might get drawn out of the hat anyway. So they start drawing names out of the hat. And a whole bunch of people who had signed up hadn't turned up. So they kept on pulling someone out and being like, is that person there? No, they're not. Is that person there? No, they're not. And eventually they came through to me, and I was just like, I don't got a poem. I couldn't say oh no, I don't want to perform because no one was. And so I'm just like, yeah, do it. And then I'm sitting there with a lady on the table who was where I was sitting, and I'm like, what am I going to do? And so I ended up deciding to turn one of my stand-up sets, which I did. I did a lot of stand-up at the time, and I was like, well, I'll do a poem version of that. I'll take the essential joke of this stand-up set, and I'll make a poem version. So I sort of worked out a few poetic beats for it, and then got up and did that poem as this sort of chaotic, semi-improvised piece, and that went over very well, and somehow I won the slam with that. So that was, and then I won another one. We had for 1 year, and I think it's only been the 1 year that it ran before the pandemic sort of shut everything down. There was a poetry slam for all trans and gender diverse poets, and that was epic. We did it over 2 nights. We had two rounds. I got through the first round with the poem from the first slam, but then I felt like I only got through by the skin of my teeth against all these really strong poets, and so I had to write a new poem. And then over the next, I forget it was 24 or 48 hours. It was a short space of time, but I just intensely wrote this other poem. And manage to win the slam with that one. So I seem to my slam poetry seems to come out of me under pressure. It seems to be like very of the moment, but I feel that's very much that's sort of in the slam world. That part of the joy of slam poetry is it is often very fresh. Like often the poems which I feel are really good slam poems, really great slam poems, are ones that are of the moment, that the poet's written at the time, and that brings in with all like this very fresh emotion. It's really fresh, raw emotion. That's the kind of energy that the slam room responds to. I think so. Yeah,
That's amazing.
You know, the poems which I've sat and sort of worked out over a long period of time and kind of crafted, they're not so much slam poems. It's more the ones which you just like let you bang out, you know, a lot of emotion. Those are the ones that really sort of come across in that environment.
I don't think it was beginner's luck. I don't think it was beginner's luck, because my first poetry slam that I did, I didn't place. I didn't place at all. And I love the fact that you're able to take a comedy bit and turn it into poetry. Now that right there is some talent.
And Nikki, what I was going to say was, like, say for me, I just write. That's my focus. That's where all my energies go. But your energies, your creative energies is spread out right across the whole gamut, right? From your theatrics to the stand-up comedy to poetry to the performances. One only has 24 hours in the day, and to trying to focus that creative mind into, or channeling it. Okay, right now I've got a stand-up comedy gig coming up, so I need to write for that. And then I've got some theatre play, so I've got to rehearse for that. I've got to rehearse my lines there. And now I'm going to write some poetry. That must be so much harder than for somebody like me who just writes. I mean, I couldn't sing, I can't act, I can't do any of those, so stand-up comedy would be a disastrous failure. So, I just need to focus on one thing, but for you, you've got so much. That in itself deserves recognition, the fact that you're able to do that. That wouldn't be easy.
I mean, I do put a lot of time and energy to it. Like it takes up like most of my time is working on art of different forms. Can I just, before I answer this, I'm getting a little bit of like noise, like sort of feedback noise. Are you hearing that?
No, I just have a delay on my end. So you guys are delayed for a moment, and then it catches up, and then delay again, and freeze, and then delay.
Yeah, I'm getting like a sort of a call sound, like the phone's making a dialing sound, and I feel sometimes I'm getting like other little bits of interference, other bits of noise. It might be some out in the country. I don't know. Like signals sometimes a bit, sometimes a bit iffy out here.
You're coming,
but anyway,
quite clearly to us.
You're
coming through quite clearly to us.
Okay.
Anyway. Yeah.
Cool.
Yes, well.
So it's when I'm talking about like doing like different types of art. I find, while it is a sort of a challenge, and like in some ways I sort of wonder if, well, what if I had the sort of double down on one thing? Like, what if I just did the stand-up grind, or I did just like, focus on poetry? Like maybe some things would move along faster. But for me, I get inspiration from doing the different sort of forms, like different styles of things. And it's like working in one for a while makes me want to work in another, makes me interested in bringing in something from another style of performance. It's in some ways I find it easier. That enables you to tell the story that you want to tell, the message that you want to tell. Because I think sometimes something you want to say, you'll try to write it as a poem and it doesn't work because it's not really a poem. But it might work better as a comedy bit. It might work better as a skit where you're not really, where you're really, it might work better as a different style of thing. And so I find that I do often have a similar concept, like a similar theme, which I'll then work out, first as a comedy thing, then as a poetry thing, then as something else. Like I'll approach it different ways. And sometimes it doesn't work in a particular genre. Sometimes it works as something else. Certainly with the pandemic and everything that happened here with that's sort of what shifted me from doing poetry from doing comedy rather to doing poetry. Because comedy is like firstly about the audience a lot. We didn't have audiences. We had everything on video. So that took a lot of the drive out of comedy, a lot of the joy out of comedy like that. But also the feelings of that time couldn't be really expressed in the stand-up set in the same way. There were too many emotions, and so I needed a more emotional style of writing to be able to express them. And so that's when I started writing lots of more sort of deep diving poetry at that time. So an awful lot of like yearning love poetry for some reason. I don't normally write that during the pandemic. I think I just missed people. I didn't see people, so I missed them.
Yeah. If ever you got any gigs happening during the Melbourne Comedy Festival, you'll have to let me know because I'd love to come and watch some of your stand-up work.
Oh, well, I'd like to bring them back. It's been a few years. Like when I think about it, it's been since the year before the pandemic happened. So that's now 5 years. This has been going for. Since the last time I dressed up as a bee on stage and did stand up about bees. Well, my last show, the bees and wasps. Inspired by a time I lived with a whole hive of wasps in my kitchen.
Oh no!
What?
I had it was a while ago. A house I was living in had ironically it happened just after a housemate had moved out, and I advertised for a housemate, and then so I joked about it that my new housemate was wasps because like I'd put the ad up, and then almost like a few days later, all these wasps showed up and started living in my kitchen, and I could hear them up in the kitchen room, but. Melbourne landlords being what they are, the wasps were there for a long time before I could get anything done about them. So I just lived with them, and I kind of like got emotionally attached to my wasps. And so my buddies that lived in my roof, they stung me sometimes, but they lived in my roof. They're my buddies, and but I documented the whole thing like on social media, and then I made a show sort of based off my social media posts. But it's also a nice excuse to do a dance as a bee in a bee costume.
I think I have either bees or wasps in my kitchen. And when you said that, I'm like, I could hear them in the wall, and it's that kind of vibrating, a buzz, and then it stops. And then it happens again, and then it stops.
Well, if it's the bees will, I know about this now. Bees will make a sort of a humming sound. They make it's a more pleasant noise. They make a humming sound. Wasps, it sounded kind of more sort of liquidy. It sounded like this sort of sound, like because they're moving like the wax in the nest and stuff like that. That I guess. I'm not exactly sure what causes it, but it was definitely like sort of a wetter sound.
Yeah.
The bees will create more of like a hum. The wasps they'll also create like a buzzing noise with their wings because they ventilate the nests by fluttering their wings. And so they'll create this sort of noise which will go like, and it goes through all the night because like wasps don't sleep. They're awake 24/7 because they need to be more terrifying for some reason. They're always awake. And like often through the night you'd hear them doing that.
So
that's fluttering with their wings.
Do bees sleep?
Bees? Not 100% sure if bees sleep. I
I'm
think they
hoping.
do. I think bees do. Wasps don't. They have different activity cycles. They have a high activity cycle day and then a low activity cycle at night. But I don't know. It's like, 'cause there's so many things on the internet about how to give a rest to a tired bee, like when a bee tires itself out and you see like little bees lying in flowers. That's convinced me that bees sleep, but I actually don't know if they do. It might be like wasps.
Thank you. Now I'm gonna have to do research because I was hoping it was bees because we have in Florida yellow jackets, wasps, um, jack spiders, and then you have hornets. And the hornets,
Yeah.
they're like this big.
Mm.
Okay. I'm getting off track now. Will you be sharing any of your comedy with us? Maybe like something that you were thinking about having as poetry that turned into comedy or vice versa?
Oh, that's putting me on the spot a bit. Doing a stand-up set. It's been a little while, so it's like for me, I know it still is since the lockdowns. Even though it's been a few years now, it's still a case of dusting stuff off
Yeah.
and finding this like this bit of material, this bit of thing from before. So yeah, I sort of like came with a bunch of poems. I've got poems and
That's
Yep.
stuff to do
Love to hear
today.
some. Yep. Let's
Um,
go to a poem. Yep.
that he knows me. That's fine. Don't feel pressured into doing anything.
um, no, that's fine. But I find it's an interesting thing about doing work which you haven't done for a while. Like when I get on stage and start doing it, like part of my brain will be like, oh, there's no chance of me remembering this. And then as soon as you start doing it, it all starts coming together, and you have all these different, yeah, or yeah, all these different connections that are still there.
I remember the first piece I heard you recite at an open mic was the title was something like "How to Be a Woman" or "Being a Woman" or something like that. Oh man, that was just amazing. That blew me away. You did it at the Open Studio in Northcote. Yeah. But anyway,
That's one of
it's your
that's one of
show.
my more that's one of my more recent poems. That one.
Well, it's your show. You recite anything that you want to showcase in your work so that we can bring Nikki Viveca to people all around the globe through this show. And Nikki, I also create a YouTube video of this show, and I also do a podcast, which I'll send you the links to once I've created them as well. So
Hmm.
you never know who hears this, who watches or listens to the show, and well, I certainly was impressed by the first time I heard you perform, and if I can bring it to people around the globe, uh, it's a pleasure.
Well, um, we'll start with that one which you mentioned, the Femme Commandments. That poem. Since I've talked about it. Welcome to womanhood. Thou shalt know the rules. Thou shalt honor the aesthetic. Thou shalt embody the aesthetic. Thou shalt be pleasing to look upon. Thou shalt be pleasing to listen to. Thou shalt be pleasing unto all senses. Thou shalt be gentle. Thou shalt be sweet. Thou shalt smile. Thou shalt be bubbly. Thou shalt be available sexually. But sex is not a thing thou shalt actively seek. Thou shalt not paint thy face deceivingly, nor shalt thou be seen with thy face unpainted. Thou shalt wake up with thy face thus so. How did it get thus? I mean, who shalt know? Thou shalt do all things listed in the book of desirables. Thou shalt avoid all things listed in the book of unfuckables. Thou shalt be hot, but thou shalt be humble. Thou shalt be considered naive, but thou shalt still bear 90% of all responsibilities. Thou shalt be available for emotional labour endlessly. But thou shalt not have too many emotions of thy own. Thou shalt not feel any of the following: anger, annoyance, anxiety, sadness, pride, self-worth, self-esteem, any other emotion, really. Thou mayest cry, but only if thy crying place be pretty and not discomforting to others. Thou shalt smile more. Thou shalt have only endearing thoughts. Thou shalt have a body in whatever proportions are currently fashionable. Thou shouldst probably order the salad. Thou shalt find the salad unaccountably funny, and thou shalt have a good laugh. Thou shalt laugh at jokes, but not thy own jokes. In fact, thou shalt not tell too many jokes of thy own. Being a stand-up comedian is right out. Thou shalt apologise to the one thou hast inconvenienced. Thou shalt apologise to the one who hast inconvenienced thee. Thou shalt apologise to inanimate objects. Thou shalt apologise to the universe generally for thy existence. Thou shalt not speak of thy menstruation or the processes of thy body, but thou shalt know the ways of motherhood instinctively. Thou shalt be maternal. Thou shalt bear a child. Though thou shalt not if thou art too young, and thou shalt not if thou art too old. Thou shalt not if thou art unemployed. Thou shalt not if thou hast a career. Thou shalt not if thou art single. Thou shalt not if thou art queer. But if thou shalt not, thou shalt be considered incomplete. Thou shalt, of course, have ovaries to begin with. If thou art trans, thou shouldst not be. But if thou insist, thou shalt trans before puberty, so thou shalt not have any mark of the bad hormones upon thee, but shalt only trans when thou art of age, so thou art old enough to know. Basically, thou hast a window of about 5 minutes, and thou hast missed it by listening to these rules. So, stuck to be thee. Thou shalt be thyself, but nay, not like that. Nay, not like that either. Nay, nay, nay. Thou shalt be the version of thyself we write for thee. And if thou find our terms contradictory, verily that seems like a thou problem. Thou shalt be measured, and thou shalt be found wanting, whatever thou shalt do. Welcome to womanhood. We hope thee abide by these few simple rules.
Jeez.
Oh, you can see why I love that Gemini when I first heard Nikki perform it live. And in that live presence, just the theatrics added to it, and the pause, just amazing. It blew me away. Yeah.
That
was one of those poems which came out of me in a big rush. Again, we've been talking about it for a while, of writing that with my best friend who plays music with me when I do poetry. And we discussed the ideas for this poem, but when it actually came, it was just like a rush of just emotion, like everything we just collectively wanted to get off our chests about our experience of life at that time.
I love that piece. I resonate so much with every single portion of that piece. And like being someone who was born considered female and having my children and then losing the ability to have children, almost like losing my life doing that, and not feeling like a woman because now I don't have ovaries. Well, I have ovaries, but I don't have any other portion of that dynamic that's supposed to make you a woman because you can reproduce. So that just thank you so much for that piece.
You're so welcome. It does, yeah, it is like a thing, especially once, once you get to, once you're at my age, I'm in my 40s now, where the way people react to you is different according to whether you've got children or not. Like it doesn't matter as much at other ages, but now you're constantly engaging with the idea of whether you've had kids, whether you've fulfilled this role we're all supposed to be fulfilling apparently, and how people react to you, that like changes with it. And that's something which both both me and my best friend, who's a cis woman, both felt, and in different ways, we both felt this pressure about it, and how it kind of like overshadowed our life in some way. So,
And being single, like you're incomplete because you're single. You must be completely unlovable because you're single. Oh, you're broken. There's something wrong with you. Oh, you're too picky. Yes.
yeah.
So I definitely resonated with everything stated in that poem.
But it also touched on so many other sad truths that even we're meant to have within communities and societies we're meant to have grown through, but still that underlying unsaid words, about expectations in proportions, in behaviors, in all that. You touched all that in that piece. There was a lot, you know.
Because my man went to, when you talked about proportions, you thou shalt fit into whatever the proportion is, whatever the ideal is at the time. And I remember Marilyn Monroe with her wide hips and her just like she had a little pudge, and she was just natural. And of course the rest of the stuff, the Hollywood put on the blonde hair and stuff like that, but her body, her shape was natural. It was not augmented, and that was the body to have back then. And now just about all the bodies now are plastic, and that's the body to have now.
Yeah, but sort of it changes. It changes like within not even just the course of your lifetime, just in the course of your youth. Even like you go through times when you're the fashion, like the '90s, everyone was like this absolutely bright theme, and then you like a few years later, something else is coming. It's like, oh, this is what we want. We want you to have these particular body features. You're supposed to have these curves, which don't exactly line up with how any woman's curves actually go naturally, but they'll have lots of things like that, and you can feel it. You can feel like the sort of fashion shift around you, and especially in the art of performance, like with being in theatre or doing modelling or anything like that. That there's times when you're in fashion, and there's times when you're not, and you feel it, and you can feel it change.
Yeah.
You can feel it change. It's just like, or you spend, like I felt a bit when I was young, you spend a bit of time like chasing a particular image of your body, which you feel like you're supposed to have. And by the time you're getting there, the fashions have changed, and your old body's now the one that everybody likes. It's, it's an endless like moving landscape, which you can't really sort of get ahead on. It's not designed for you to get ahead on. It's not designed for you to be comfortable on it. It's designed to keep you always striving and always pursuing this idea.
And that's the thing, like everything is supposed to be just not just so unattainable that you almost are grasping it, because it's like society runs on your yearning, on the way that we want our hair and our bodies to look. So all of the products, all of the you have to have a demand for it in order for there to be someone to produce it, because you have to be able to have consumers to consume everything that you're pouring out. So if you keep changing fashion, if you keep changing what the ideal is, then a fraction of the people will attain it, and you put those in the spotlight, and everybody else is just clamoring for it.
Yeah, and it can be quite within societies can be quite brutal too if you don't fit in, and those silent, unsaid looks that you get. It can say a lot. Yeah, well, I mean, it drives you to all kinds of eating disorders and so forth too, right? Which is sad, Yeah. What's next?
On the topic of bodies, this is one of my poems I wrote for a theatre show actually a few years ago, but I've been doing it on the slam a lot. I performed it recently in Sydney. So this is called numbers. These are the numbers that make up me. These are my ones, my twos, my threes. I'm a BMI, which I'm told is too high, and an IQ, which I'm told is wasted, on an income bracket that's far too low, and a welfare number I know by heart. There are no numbers in my art. I work in words and motion, and strategic reveal of my body's part. I'm a height that's considered tall for a girl, a waist too large, a bust too small. I'm a certain age. Shh, don't tell. I'm a birth date down on the DL. I'm figures that are getting hard to cast. I'm a running down clock, not an hourglass. And these are the numbers that tell my score, my 101, my 404. In the eyes of any passing men, I'm a given number out of 10. Not high enough, usually, for them to look again. On a bad day, low enough that they laugh. I'm calendar days, ticking off too fast. I'm a street number where you can sometimes find me. I'm digits you can call to remind me that my bill payments are slipping behindly. Leave a message, thank you kindly. I'm a large number of unheard messages. I'm the secret pin, you better not look. I'm the accruing fine on that overdue book. I'm expiry dates on a dozen cards and the long gone dates stamped in my heart. And these are the numbers that make up me, my pi to 10 and square root of 3. I'm October 12th. I'm the 14th of May. I'm significance attached to random days. I'm mathematical chaos, babe, and I'm statistically likely to be in your way. I'm white with one. There you go, ma'am. I'm 1,500 followers on Instagram. I'm daily doses in milligrams, these numbers that make me who I am. I am the remainder after love being subtracted. I am the fraction of a family divided. I'm a late addition to an irrational nation. I'm the value for X that fucks up your equation. I'm not eligible for multiplication, and these are the numbers that define my station. My zeros, my zeros, my zeros. These are the numbers that make up me, my zeros.
Wow.
I fumbled on the word multiplication a bit then.
But it'll work. So if you repeat the word multiplication 3 times,
Yeah.
it'll work because it would feel like it was part of the poem. Just don't acknowledge that
don't acknowledge that at the end that it was it.
Yeah, because it's like how you call it, onomatopoeia. It sounds like that. It sounds like an intentional onomatopoeia. No, that was a beautiful poem. Where have you been? I know I'm in Florida, but where have you been? I love your pieces. Rainier told me that I would love your work, and he is on point, absolutely on point.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome, man.
There's always such underlying power in your pieces, Nikki, that really we should be thinking about as society. I mean, you know, as a whole, as an entirety. Yeah, the numbers. And I'm a male, and I'm saying this, you know, and sometimes I'm embarrassed at my fellow men. The judgmentalness, you know, the looks, the stopping to talk, and yet, although the external is such a transparent, temporary thing, right? That person inside is what matters, but we don't stop to think. And Gemini, I purposely, once a week, I try to go to open mics around Melbourne's a very arty city, and we got some really good talent, very in theatrics and all that. I go there mainly to meet people like Nikki, and which I only started doing probably 8 months ago when I started going to a lot of lives because I had other things happening in my life, and I'm really enjoying the experience now, you know, and meeting. Because my own work's known more in the US, UK and Canada and so forth. I hardly knew any poets in my hometown, and I'm enjoying meeting and meeting people locally. And there was so much talent here right under my nose. and I'm really enjoying that. And Nikki is evidence of that, you know. So,
Nikki,
yeah.
I was the one that told him to go.
Well, I did get some pushing, yes. There. Um, the stage is yours, Nikki. Take it away.
Sure. Let's um on on the topic of on the topic of like of gender relations. This is a poem which I wrote originally for a Halloween show, and I performed it. I performed it a little while ago at an exhibition of art about male violence. Um, it's just called Spooky Poem, but with lots of O's in the spooky. It's like a ghost saying it's Spooky Poem. I'm not afraid of ghosts. I'm not afraid of grisly spectres, of wafting pale transparent ladies, or poltergeists who rattle the china trying to affect us. If a ghost pops up, I won't squeal. I'm not super good with surprises, so I might, but I'd rather a ghostly presence feel than to be walking home at night, late after a gig or seeing a band, and hear behind me the footfall of a straight, white, cisgendered man. Of all the creatures in the world, that's the one that endangers me the most. So why should I jump at the spooky boo of a harmless little old ghost? Unless I guess it was the ghost of a straight, white, cis guy, then I might be scared a smidge, though at least in becoming undead, thereby he would have lost some privilege. On a side note, if a trans person dies while they're still in the closet, does their ghost come back as the soul's true gender? I like to think it does. And I'd like to have that ghost over for tea. But as for tangling with straight white cis men, that's a steaming cup of no from me. I'm not afraid of werewolves. I'm not chilled when they howl at the moon. I won't scare when they run about covered in hair and do, whatever else it is that werewolves be doing. If I see them transform, my blood will stay warm. I won't to terror be moved. I mean, what person do you know who by being turned into a dog would not be vastly improved? I mean, becoming a pooch would give most people a better personality, but the action of the straight white cis is something I wish were a full moon myth, not a grim, everyday reality. And turn them all into doggos, spend them out to get bitten. Besides, if there's werewolves, then surely there's were-puppies, were-cats, and were-kittens. On a side note, do you think a closet trans girl got bitten by a werewolf? Would she turn into a she-wolf? Like while you're transforming? While you're there, just sort it all out? That's how it would happen, I think. I hope. She'd get to be a fierce femme lycanthrope. But as for dealing with straight white cis guys, from me, that's one big nope. I'm not afraid of vampires. I mean, they're easy to keep from coming after you. Like just whip out your compact or get on Uber Eats and order a strong garlic focaccia. But straight guys of the white cis kind, resilient to all such talismans. I mean, just try to find a way to make them go away. I'll be impressed if you can. Holy water doesn't work on them. And in daylight, they boldly go. They're immune to the thought they might be wrong and are very resistant to the word no. At least if a vampire fangs someone, villagers rise up in fear, with pitchforks and torches set to burn, not excuses and concern for how this incident will affect the vampire's career. On a side note, do you think how a vampire needs an invite to come into your home? Can it get that from you as a tenant, or does it need to come from the landlord? It's just a question for damsels like me who rent. Either way, a man could learn a thing or two from vampires about the concept of consent. Now, I'm not afraid of monsters who lurk about at Halloween. I'm more afraid of those who do their evil proudly, plainly seen. Ghouls have the grace to hide their shame and wail at their damnation. The monsters I fear are on TV, They raise families, run companies, and govern sovereign nations. Evil is afoot by day. So we must rise, we of the fabulous night. It's time the reign of terror was ended, with monsters straight, monsters white, monsters male, cisgender.
You brought tears to my eyes when you
Yeah.
said, if someone who's queer dies in the closet, will their ghost come back as a proper gender? That hit me hard because I have a lot of friends from the queer community. So that was a beautiful poem, but there was a hint, there's more than a hint of sadness in there. I love the, how you call it? Not sarcasm. What is it called in theater when you say something that is, because Machiavelli did it with Eat the Rich, satire. I love the satire in the poem, where some things were said and almost in jest, but there is some really hard truth and some darkness and sadness in there as well. Was that the intent that you had?
Yeah, I mean, it's a poem about very, very, very frightening and very, very real topic. That it was written at a time when I had to, had a bit of a walk coming home from public transport back to my house, and it would often be quite scary. Doing that, like just having to go past all these old sort of abandoned parts of town, and if your car came past, or if there was a guy on the street, you'd instantly go into that fear reaction. I think most women have that because most of us have had situations in the past where something has happened. And so even if you walk this way every night, even if you're used to going there, it's you know that any night could be the night where something that does actually happen.
I felt that today of the daytime.
Yeah, true. There hasn't been any, when I've had incidents where I've been at risk, or I've been hurt. There's no sort of real logic to it about when or where that happened. Sometimes it happens in a place where you think oh, well, why was I there at that time? Other times it happens somewhere which feels safe. And there's places where I've been, which I used to regard as safe places, where something's happened to somebody who I know. And, there's that constant kind of sense of fear, and it did strike me as I was having one of these walks home, during Halloween time, and everyone's got the friendly ghosts up in the windows and stuff. I'm just why do we invent all these monsters? We spend all this time inventing monsters, and it's almost like a way of getting away from the real fear or the real dangers in society. We are our own. Humans are each other's worst enemy, and it's those people who, people who sort of prey on other people like that. Are your biggest fear, and especially when there's any kind of power dynamic in a society, whether that's men to women, or white people to people of color, or even rich and poor divides. There's this tension there, which can get exploited in power. But especially, I think in Australia and the world over, I think gender violence is huge. It's a huge problem. It's an epidemic problem, and there are so many big problems in the world which I think stem from that. There's and if you know, there's so much violence can be implicit in people. But yeah, I feel that like in some ways, like if we could deal with those underlying clause, those underlying power dynamics which hurt people, then you would be dealing with a lot, you know, an issue which kills like lots of people every year. And also maybe like broader social concerns as well. I don't know if that's all making sense what I'm saying. I sort of get
it makes sense. What really struck me was how you stepped into the core of my heart and expressed like some of my deepest fears. How you mirrored everything that I've felt, especially lately with the social and political dynamic changing here in the United States, and the fact that the way that you stated as if you were standing next to me in my skin. That right there, that kind of, I was taken aback by that. Because people have become more emboldened based on power dynamic. And it's not just that things still happen. Things still happen, it's overlooked, and it's glorified. So which allows people like that to feel more emboldened to do even more atrocities. Thank you so much for sharing that poem.
As I said before, Nikki, your pieces, you draw, in your recitals, you draw the people into it. And initially you go, is this funny? Is this not? But then soon you're immersed into the powerful messages that are underlying in your pieces. And that's what I loved about the couple of times I've seen you perform the pieces that you've recited. They just leave me almost speechless because I'm in my head asking these questions that your work provokes. You know,
It's an interesting thing as some people's work mostly in comedy, trying to write about serious issues. Because I've always got this drive in me to back away from things and to make a joke out of something or to do it in a light way. And so when I want to talk about something which really affects me deeply, something's really affects a lot of people deeply like that. Something with a lot of pain there. There's a lot of pain there. Then there's always this temptation to sort of wrap it in cotton wool to some extent. I like when I perform like that poem, like the spooky poem, because I like the balance in there where I'm able to express a lot of pain, but I sort of keep it light. That's a poem I can do to bring up that topic and have that conversation in a way which is a little bit softened. I do have others where I go sort of like quite serious, but it's like it's a bit of a challenge for me to deal with that. How are we feeling? Are we in the space for like some more heavy poetry, or do we want to?
Yes, we are.
I wanted to. Oh, sorry. What was that, Gemini?
I said this is all you, and we can take anything heavy. Like, I love the satire in your poems. I believe that the way that you were engineered and the way that you create, I'm glad that your poetry is true to the way that you were engineered, because the satire and the comedy within the darkness and the delivery of the poem, it's supposed to be like that, because that's why comedians do so well at delivering dark humor, because you can deliver something that is like someone would be bawling their eyes out. You can deliver, and it hits you differently because you feel everything and you hear the truth in it, but you're able to gather more, you're able to take in more than if someone just belted out something about violence. You're able to add more, you're able to tell a longer story and have people tuned in. And you had me completely tuned in that last poem.
Okay.
I'm so glad you went down the career path that you did in the theatrics, in the stand-up comedy, in the writing, in the performing arts. Yeah, I'm so glad you did, Nikki, because you really do bring a lot to the stage. You really do. I honestly can't wait for you to get back to Melbourne. So I'd love to just hang out and just have these. The conversation today has been just so gripping. It's been a great conversation. I can't wait for you to come back and just see you perform again and just have a chin wag over at Bar Rusu or Open Studio or wherever. I just can't wait. Yeah.
Yeah. How many poems do you think we still have? I'll just
Well, normally for Gemini and myself, there's no real time limit, right? But with Instagram, if it goes over about 1 hour 50, over 2 hours, say, when I download the video to the YouTube, it ends it at about 2 hours. The file's too big, so then I've got
yeah.
to record the screen, and it just. So I try to keep it to 2 hours. We've been going for 1 hour and 11 minutes, so you got another 50
Okay.
minutes basically to showcase and tell people as to what you got coming up as well and so forth. There's all about showcasing Nikki Viveca.
Yes.
I'll do one of the most the more emotional poems I have. This is called Raven. I read the news, and another one of its is dead. A hairdresser, a nice girl, murdered. And I want to scream, but I can't scream. I have to pick myself up and go do the day and do my best sympathetic face when a cis friend tells me about her latest drama. It's a man. And I want to scream at her, a girl died. You think I care about this minor disappointment? It's a man. But I don't. I make sympathetic noises and I go do the day. Do I take the pill that makes me more productive but dials up the volume of my inner scream? Or do I do Today Raw and see how that goes? I take the pill. Of course I do, and accept that at 3 p.m. I will feel like I'm about to vomit ravens into the sky. And a cis friend calls because she's still grappling with an old disappointment. It was a man. And I want to tell her, look, frankly, there is a girl like me dying violently every couple of weeks, and all of them had better prospects for their future than you did for Dream Life with Greg or whoever. But I don't. I make sympathetic noises, and this takes too long and makes me late. But late or not, here I am, ready to do my day, and I have taken my pill. I have done my makeup, so you can't even see the scars. I'm ready to face the world and smile and tell people it gets better. Wondering when will my brain stop screaming? I feel like it's been screaming since the last century. And another girl died, and there are men shooting beer cans as proxies for us. Who shall come to me with your latest letdown? It will be a man, and I will be sympathetic. I just wish any of you showed some sign of caring. A girl died. A hairdresser.
That one needs to breathe.
Yeah. That does.
Sometimes, yeah. It's sad how, number one, we place value on people's status within the society. Even a beggar is a human. Even the person sleeping on the street's a human. And we're expected to just almost take it in our stride. As you said, take the pill, do your makeup, and take it in your stride.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. And yeah, we're constantly asked to do that, but
mm,
there's so much tragedy and so much difficult things going on, which are expected to go on with. Um, that poem was written in response to the murder of trans women, which is happening, especially in the Americas, in both North and South America. There's been a lot of murders, and it's a thing that we in our community we take on all the time. It's like every time you check the news, there's something has happened, and you're taking that on top of all the violence against women in general, which happen. But you still have to go and be, smiley customer service person at work, or you need to go and be promo come see my comedy show person. You've still got to be good, sympathetic friend who looks after other people as they go through. You know, sometimes like quite mundane problems. You've got to do all that stuff, and you've got to do all that stuff while holding the pain from the world.
mm,
I wanted to do that piece in comparison with Spooky Poem, as they're both sort of similar in topic, but sort of slightly different in approach. When I wrote Ravens, I remember I felt like it was hard for me to be that personal. I felt so self-conscious about writing that, because I was like exposing that bit of pain, which I'm used to. I'm used to battening down like that, and not revealing.
How long ago was that piece written?
It would have been written in. It was recent. It was a recent one. So time has blurred since the pandemic. It was either last year or 2022. It was in response to a particular piece of news. And it would have, it's I'm going to be bad on the dates. Okay. I could look it up. I could remember the exact time I wrote it, but I forget which year is which these days. Unfortunately,
No.
it's just like since 2020, time has been quite years to float around.
Yes,
it's float around.
All lost like 4 years during the pandemic. So before and after pandemic, it's almost like BC and AC. Was it AC?
Yeah.
So like before the pandemic, after pandemic, it kind of lost time. There's a time warp somewhere in between. We all forgot. But what I wanted to say, I definitely see. I could see the difference, and it's almost like softening the impact of the hard truths with some of the satire, some of the comedy. It didn't make it any less powerful, but I can see the potency of this one, of the emotional piece, and just black and white, the truth. This is what it is. What did you say about? Did you say about throwing up ravens or screaming ravens into the sky?
Yeah.
What was that line?
It's that by 3 p.m. I'm going to feel like I want to vomit ravens into the sky. I'm going to vomit ravens into the sky.
And I have so much. There's so much symbolism in ravens, and having them come out of you, because I have 2 poems about ravens coming out. And ravens is a symbol of wisdom, but the cry of ravens, they usually have it depicted during funerals and stuff like that, because it's an omen as well. That is beautiful. That line itself, by 3 p.m., I feel like I will want to vomit ravens into just thinking of that imagery of after holding all of the sorrow in, to just let it out, because now you're not around someone where you have to muffle it and swallow everything in. Thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing that with us.
Nikki, that piece was so relatable to me right now, because Tuesday night I had some tragic news, and Wednesday I had to go into work, and in between, because I had a few important meetings, and in between those I was just going to the toilet, just crying my heart out, washing my face, coming to a meeting back in there, and at 4 o'clock I just took off from the office. I couldn't anymore as soon as I finished my last meeting. Yeah. um, and when he said that you that line, take your pill and do your makeup and go out there, that's what I've had to do all week. So that was so relatable. That's why I said I had to let that one breathe, because it was like he was talking to me as a friend, just telling me, brother, you got to do this. That's because that's what I've been going through all week. Yeah.
I want to hug everybody right now.
This is a virtual hug for you both.
There you go.
All the way from Queensland, Australia. There you go. So now that the theatre play is done with in Sydney, what's next?
I've got another show coming up, which will be in Melbourne in October. It's called Homo FOMO. It's about being queer, but feeling you're not queer enough, or feeling like you somehow don't live up to the image of queerness. So we have like this sparkly image of all dancing and like glitter balls and having a wild time at Mardi Gras, and a lot of times I feel like, well, I can't be that every day. I can't be this vision that you have. And a lot of people we find in the community feel like that. It's just like we feel like there's almost like, it's impossible standard of queerness. Like, what if you don't dance? What if you don't like crowds? What if you what if you just want to sit at home and read and have a cup of tea? And do you get to be as gay as the people in the Mardi Gras? It's so it's a show about that. So we'll be it's devised at the moment, but we're in the process of sort of like working on like with the writers and the cast. I'm one of the cast, and we have a bunch of characters for it. And yeah, so there should be a couple of seasons of it in Melbourne, but the first one will be in sort of like mid to late October.
Count me in. I'll be there. I'll be locking tickets in for sure. Count me in.
I love that. I love that. I wish I was in Melbourne, because I always feel like I'm not Caribbean enough, because I'm from St. Lucia. But I never feel like everybody is in Carnival, and there's the debauchery and the nakedness and the I love the sequins, I love the costumes, but like, give me more to put on. That's all I'm saying. So like, I love the food, I love the people, I love everything Caribbean. I am Caribbean, it's in my blood, but I just don't feel so I oh my gosh, I wish I could see that play.
Yeah.
And like the times when you get to do it, like times when I have done the parade, or when we had the marriage rallies here in Australia, and we'd have these big things, and I had one moment where I was like at the rally dancing on top of the thing, waving the big trans flag and stuff like that, and Lady Gaga was playing. It's just like, yeah, this is peak queer. I've hit peak queer. And it's great. They feel amazing, those moments. But then, life goes on, and you spend a lot of time. It's like, I don't want to go to a party every week. I want to have some quiet weeks as well. And yeah.
Oh man.
So, would you like to you like to, on the topic of queerness? Would you like to hear some love poems?
Yeah.
Yes.
I could sit here listening to your stuff all day, Nikki.
Here is my heart, red, like a brick wall, impenetrable. There's no way in, so why bother looking? Okay, there's a door, I suppose, but it's rusted shut and grown over with ivy. And even if you could pry it loose, it just opens onto a second wall, another face of brick. So it's not really much of a door at all. Impenetrable. Okay, there's a window, if you look hard, but it's oh so small and it's up so high. Why would you risk that breakneck climb when it's locked anyway and never ever open? So, okay, I mean maybe very occasionally it's open, but like only a crack, like really just and snap shut quickly and mind your fingers. Others have tried. They've made the climb. They've gamely delivered their invites. Dear madam, we politely request the pleasure of your affection. No reply. Must go unread, unopened, uneven fucking looked at. Okay. Maybe some get glanced over. Maybe a rare one gets read twice. Maybe if I look back, I can find times when I started drafting a reply, but I just never finished. I just never sent. I just forgot I meant to send because I forgot I wanted to. Like against all odds, I caught desire and then misplaced it, and I'll find a trace of it months later, years, a lifetime, and wonder how it slipped my mind. I mean, aren't these feelings meant to be things that cling resiliently, not get blown away in the first breeze, scattered petals you can't hope to catch or ever reassemble into a flower? I'm writing this while this feeling is fresh, while my mind's still on the time our shy glances met. Because I know I will, but in this moment, I don't want to forget. When I read this poem back, when I find it, and probably with some surprise, months from now, years, lifetime, I won't remember what felt possible when I looked into your eyes. I guess by then it's going to be way too late to offer you this. But here it is. My heart. Red.
Right from the very start, from the title you got me. And I love that part where, yeah, you can open this door, but you're faced with another brick wall, so what's the point? And that's so relatable. We've all encountered that in ourselves and in other people.
I'm right there right now. I've been single for 7 years. I'm right there. There's my heart red like a brick wall. There is a gate, but it's rusted shut.
No, I haven't dated in a very long time. That was like, it was sort of a surprising. This is right at the start of the pandemic, before lockdown. I sort of met someone who was like, oh, and then we all went into lockdown, and I was like, oh, that was a poem I wrote in like the very early times of lockdown. I started like I wrote this poem about this person. It actually took me a long time to finish it, to work out what I was saying exactly in that one. But yeah, it was like, that was the first of the kind of like the lockdown yearning poems, of which there were a lot. Of which there were.
Do you have any books in mind? Because I'm thinking about like some of my fellow poets, like Deep Thought the lyricist. He started writing Midnight. What's it?
Midnight Verses. Or Midnight Thoughts.
Midnight Thoughts, all like love and yearning. And like I love to see everyone's pandemic rights. So like this, if this is just one of them, I'd like to see the rest of them in the book, because I will sit down there and consume every single one like a delicatessen. I will not devour, nibble.
I think a pandemic love poems collection would be good, because a lot of people were very yearning in the pandemic. A lot of people did spent a lot of time yearning.
Yeah.
Uh, there was a lot of that.
That's an interesting thought, though. Nikki, have you got any books in mind publishing your work? And the reason I ask also is there's so much depth in each of your lines within a poem. And while reciting it, and your cadence of recital gives the mind plenty of time to process it, but as usual, you get stuck on a line, and then meanwhile, you're processing that. You want to hang on to it, and then you go on two, three other lines and you miss. I'd love to be able to read your work where I can ponder each line 10 minutes if I need to, a half an hour if I needed to, pondering the lines, the depth of in those lines. So is there a plans for any books or thoughts or
Well, if anybody wants to publish a book of my poetry, that'd be good. No, I do have plans to publish it, but it is it's one of those plans which always sort of gets like shuffled back because I'm so performance motivated.
Yeah.
And so many of these poems are things I write for a specific performance. Like I've got I've got a gig coming up tomorrow. I don't feel like doing any of the poems I've got now. What am I going to do for it? And so then I write something new. Something like Heart Like a Brick, the one I just did. That's unusual in a poem that I spent like probably from the first draft to the finished version with about a year, I think. So it sort of sat with me for a long time. But most poems I write come out very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
They tend to be they tend to be like very like rushes of poem, but rushes of feeling. Things which I want to express at the time. So I like that poem because it's a very honest one. Like I wrote the first draft right when I was in the middle of having that particular feeling. It wasn't like looking back. It didn't have any of that hindsight where you apply that filter thing.
Yeah.
So I caught the emotion at a very raw time and then didn't minimize it or didn't let it go. And then, sort of worked on it. But a lot of my other poems come out very quickly. Is just find where I have this other one. I have a problem that like a lot of my poems I write on my phone. I don't know if you do that.
Yes.
I write a lot of them on my phone. Now I'm using my phone for Instagram. So I've got to find like somewhere else where I've got the poem written. It's terrible like how often, but like it's very convenient to write on them, and I tend to write better when I'm listening to music and moving around and stuff like that. So the phone's often like the easiest way to do it.
So if you have Google Docs, transfer, and I'm saying this and I'm bad at this because I have poems that I did via video because it was like a seance. They just wanted to come out. So there's like a freestyle. And others I have on my Facebook Messenger. And taking all of those and putting them on Google Docs has been a challenge. But if you have it on Google Docs, then you can open it up on a computer or something else at some other form. And you can be on the live and have it at the same time. And you can still do your poems on your phone. You can still write them on your phone.
Okay. Anyway, this is a more recent poem. Again, this is another one which was written exactly in the moment. This poem is called Jealousy, and it's a poem about being normal and having completely normal reactions to things. Like I don't know how it sounds, but the poem is actually completely sans drama. Like it's a poem about happiness, really, about being genuinely happy. And I really want to specify that everything in this poem is completely fine. Like the title is ironic, actually, to highlight how fine it all is and how fine I am. I'm just casually carefully penning this while you go on a date with someone off the internet, while you do the sex with someone hot from a sex with hot people app. And I just wanted to express the overwhelming fineness of this entire scenario for me, like the unbearable fineness of being in this moment, just the excessive normality of how I'm feeling, like just so normal, just like any other Tuesday night, like just a completely quotidian life moment, which I happen to be capturing in verse almost incidentally. No feelings going on really at all, no tensions, no undercurrents, just me at home. Happy my friends are doing well. Happy that you are. I mean, just a general happiness vibe, really. Like just a really, okay, great, I'm great, everything's great kind of feeling. Like we never capture these feelings in verse, do we? These normal moments. I usually write poems when I'm sad, when I feel like my heart is collapsing in on itself like a dying star compressing into a tight ball of tortured atoms that will be going through its death throes in the arse end of the night sky for the next 50 trillion years. So I just thought on this completely ordinary Tuesday, a happy Tuesday, a genuinely Tuesday normal day, I'd just write a poem with no agenda behind it, a meditation on kindness, nothing to read between the lines, no abyss to stare into the subtext, just to get to that essence of how it feels to be completely unconcerned, how great, how good, how swell, how pleasant, how peachy. Like I'm just a whole thesaurus entry on the word okay, all right? Like go to thesaurus.com, put in okay, that's me. Like all of them are me, all the words for normal and fine and great and good. I'm the okayest that ever was. I got a gold medal in the OK Olympics, all right? I'm just at home writing a poem about nothing at all, just sitting on a balcony, listening to rain. This is a poem about the rain, which nobody is kissing in. And if they were, that'd be nice to someone, I suppose. I don't know. I have no opinions on kissing or on your lips or on anyone's. I'm just sitting here having thoughts in my regular Tuesday zone. Like, wow, it'll be Wednesday again tomorrow. That'll happen. That'll happen again. It'll keep happening. While there's always more days. It's just so much being okay to do. It's just while I'm nailing that. And I'm absolutely, utterly, thoroughly, comprehensively thesaurus.com. Anyway, I can't wait to hear how you night, mate. Mine was really, really normal. Thanks. Smile emoji. Smile emoji. Heart no. Smile emoji.
Wow. How relatable is that? Yeah. As I said, I've had to do that all week. I've had to do it. I'm doing it right now. Uh, yeah. I'm stuck for words. So relatable.
Yeah,
I could
that's what I wanted to. Oh, sorry, Gemini. Okay.
no, I could just see it as a monologue, like you sitting on the balcony and just all of these scenes, even without the scene, maybe like shadows of the scene of what's happening. And then you hear the rain falling, and oh, there's rain. I could see this as a one-woman show. And like everything. When you said the rain and there's no one kissing in it, I'm like, damn. Like every movie scene from Two Lovers Kissing the Rain came to mind, and I'm like, I'm not one of those people. So that's what I felt behind that, and then the smile emoji that got me, and choosing which one to put. You don't want to sound like you're too happy, but you don't want to sound too sad. Just smile emoji, no hearts, no kissing, just smile emoji because okay.
Yeah.
And the other that got me was like today's Tuesday, tomorrow will be Wednesday, and it'll happen again and again. Life, sometimes you feel like that mouse in the proverbial wheel, right? Running and running, running, the wheel of repetition. You have joy, you have hurt, you have joy, you have hurt. Yeah, so much in that. Yeah. And as Gemini said, the smile emoji, that one was cutting deep. Yeah. sometimes somebody reaches out and you're breaking inside, and somebody else strings you up. They're not to
Mm.
blame. So you try to be happy. You don't want to drag their day because somebody
Mm.
else is down. So you try to be happy there, and you start living behind the mask of that clown. We do. I do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember what was the prompt for that particular piece?
Oh, that, yeah. Well, it's exactly what it says. Like, the person I had feelings for was out on a date, and kissing in the rain, and I was just like, "It's great. I'm really happy for you. It's good. Have a nice night. Have a nice night."
Far out.
Oh, that's so.
Because I mean, it's well, it's because it is funny things like you have like mixed emotions about things. Like you are genuinely happy for someone having a good
Mm.
time, and you want, well, even if you care about somebody, you want them to be happy. You want them to be like having fun romances and having hot sex if that's what they're into. You want them to be doing all that sort of stuff. You want that for your fans,
Yes.
and you want that for your crushes as well. But then like you have those negative. Like the flip side of it, you do get that, like you can get those jealousy feelings.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you don't sort of like admit to them. You just like sort of butt them down and don't express them. So that's sort of a poem I decided to write about that because that's what I was doing. Sort of like wave bye to my friend, send them off on their date, and then going home, and I'm like, I feel like shit. And so I sat down and wrote that. But then I felt better because I had a poem which people often like when I perform it at open mic. And so I was just like, got a poem out of a poem, which is always good. What more do you want out of life apart from to have a poem about your experiences?
Awesome poem. And relatable, very relatable. So thank you for sharing that.
Very, yeah, very relatable. Doesn't matter where you come from in life, that's very relatable. The Nikki, as you got events coming up, stay in touch because you know, this is not a one-off sort of opportunity. Whenever you got things coming up, as I said, you got a show coming up in October, so come September, even if you want to get in here and promote anything there, the door's always open. Just stay in touch, reach out, because wherever we can help people, artists, through the show, in showcasing their work and promoting their work and so forth. Jim and I are up for it. We've had some great features on this show, and you're no exception. You have just brought so much to this show, and honestly, I'm just proud to showcase talent from my home city here in bringing you on here. It's been an absolute pleasure and a honor having you here, Nikki. It really has. Your work is phenomenal. Your your journey through in all fields of entertainment, of theatre, of performing, spoken word, the written word. You just cover the whole gamut, and you brought such a richness to this show. It's been an honor actually showcasing and featuring you today. It really has. We've been going for an hour and 44 minutes, so as I said, we can go as long as we need, but it means the downloading the videos becomes ugly. But happy for you to
Well,
promote some of the things that you've got upcoming and close off with your signature piece or
sure. Well, what to have I well, Homo FOMO. Our website, I think, is Homo FOMO Show. I think it's like if you go to, I can send you the link for it. I can't remember because we had to add the show. It's like Homo FOMO Show. we will have a lot of online presence about that because all the characters are going to come onto the internet before the show itself actually happens. And there's a website where we'll have like a lot of like a lot of sort of merch about a lot of things, like a lot of things, around these characters around that show. So that's the sort of
character on
best one.
the website.
At some point, I will publish my my poems, I guess. In the meantime, you can find a couple of my poems up on YouTube. You can find one of my climb-ending poems is up there. Just look up Nikki Viveca or go to Nikki Viveca on Instagram. I often put stuff up. I'm writing a play at the moment. That's kind of my big thing right now. It's set in the spoken word scene. It's got a lot of poetry in it. I'm writing a lot of different poet characters who are all part of this play. So I'm working on that, but that will be a while because plays take a while. Slam poems you can do on the day you think of them. You can do in a minute you think of them. Plays take months, years, a very long time to happen.
So here's a question now. I usually work for an organisation, even if I'm in consulting. So I have set working day and whatever. How do you manage the idea? You'd have to be fairly disciplined, I would imagine. Like, do you set...
You would imagine.
Eh?
You would imagine. That was me being I don't know if I don't know if discipline is the right word for how I work. I do work very intensely when I'm working on something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very sort of like all-consumingly. Like you sort of want. I've got this image in my head of like a sustainable, disciplined way of making art, but art doesn't like to happen in that way.
Nope.
Yeah.
Art often likes to happen in big moments. It is. I do find that I do like to try to work every day if I can. There is. I don't always. And there's no point sort of pushing it when you're not feeling it. But especially when I'm doing a lot of gigging, like a lot of comedy, especially, then I will try to write a little bit of material every morning. Because what I find that is that you never get to what you want out of a piece straight away. As soon as you start writing, like your first ideas are very, very, very rough. And it's only by sort of like going back to something you wrote a few days ago and sort of writing on the basis of that you get there. So
that's exactly where I was trying to get to, because like for me, I've got to feel it before. And I could have said last night going to bed, okay, I'm going to wake up tomorrow, I'm going to do this, I'm going to write this, a play or any length of things. But if the juice isn't flowing, it's hard to write, right? And similarly, conversely, I might have everything flowing, and then somebody rings up and says, "Hey, this is happening. Do you want to go here?" Oh yeah, shit. That would take discipline. Yeah. So like,
yeah. But I've always found like it's because there's the act of writing, that like the act of creating, but there's also the act of inspiring yourself to it. And I found times in my life when I've just been like trying too hard to be like, no, I've got to sit down and do this. At the expense of things which you want to do, or at the expense of kind of living, for want of a better word. That's not always productive. And in fact, I find that a lot of the things which I really work at hard are the ones which don't end up being any good. The ones that I throw out, the ones that I'm less happy with. And it's a lot of that work, I find, a lot of the work that you do with like playing with language is to give yourself the tools for when you have that inspiration moment, then you bring that out. But I think like getting out there and engaging in life and following wherever your heart is currently leaning, I think that's very important part of the creative process as well. It's sort of following your instincts, letting yourself have the feelings that you're having at the time, and then like occasionally capturing them.
Yeah.
When you can, but you have to have the the feelings first. I do think, like, with the process of writing about things, about poetry has put me a lot more in touch with my own emotional world.
Yeah.
I think you can probably gather from it, like, a couple of the poems there. I've got like a bit of a history of pushing emotions down, which, I mean, the whole place. And people do push their emotions down, and certainly when I was growing up, you learn to not express feelings. You learn to not be open in your engagement with the world. And the act of writing about things, like, sort of cracks things open. Like, you find parts of yourself which you've maybe just, like, put aside or ignored. But if you take it and you make a poem about it, well, now you can't ignore it. Now you have that. And now you sort of deal with, like, what are the consequences of the fact that I had this feeling and I made this thing, I made this thing about it. Like, you sort of can't put that. In some ways, it's like approaching a feeling or situation as a piece of art is easier than just dealing with the situation. But also, once you have the piece of art, it's harder to ignore that. It's harder to express it once you have it. And I will, like, through all of my life, I'll get up and I'll perform poems about, or comedy sets about material I'd never talked to somebody about face to face. Face to face, I tend to be like pretty withdrawn. But I'll get up and say everything. So I always feel like me on stage is the most honest and open version of me. I feel like the audience have a closer relationship with me than almost anyone in my life. Because they're who I bring all my personal things to. I'm just like, oh, I've got this, this pain, this joy, this anxiety. Who am I going to tell? Am I not going to? Am I going to call a friend? Or, no, I'm not. I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it to an open mic night, and I'll see how they like it. I'll see if they find my pain funny. Do you find my pain funny? Great, yay! And
that takes strength. Yes, but I guess the audience, they could be impersonal, whereas friends are very personal and they know the personal aspects of you. I can see how that'll work. Yeah. But,
And sometimes it's easier being honest with strangers than it is being honest with friends.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and just kind of let it out, and they take it as you share it, whether it's in poetry or not. And friends or family, there's a fear that they might dissect or judge or have an agenda to not allow you to breathe out your feelings because it's making them uncomfortable. So they want to make you okay. They don't want you to work through what you're feeling.
Yeah, a lot of people who are invested in your life are more invested in you being okay or in not, like, in the role that you play in a particular situation, rather than, like, engaging with the feelings directly. Like, the way we interact with our friends, our family, our work colleagues is different to how we just, like, treat somebody out in the world, expressing themselves, because we have some stake in what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's unintentional. It's all well-meaning, but poetry and theater, especially the play that you're writing, it allows you to be so honest, and your honesty is accepted in those spaces. So I'm so excited for you. I'm so excited for you for the play that you're writing and for the performance that you're going to have, because you can be honest, just like your Mardi Gras experience and screaming on the top and then want to go curl up somewhere and read a book. So I'm excited to hear about it because I will not be able to see it. But if you send the link to the website to me as well, I just started. I realized I wasn't following you. I'm following you now. Send the link. I want to see the character introductions because I believe that's what they're going to introduce each character to the play. So by the time I get a chance to see the clip of the play, I'd know the characters.
Yeah. No. Really wish you well with all the things you got upcoming here, and from a personal point of view, I can't wait for this to be published in some form or manner so that I could take my time and savor your work as I read them and expound on each of the rich lines that you come up with in my own head.
Well, I'll try to get on to doing that. I suppose it's time for me to do my last poem now, isn't it?
Yeah, let's do your
Unfortunately,
signature piece.
unfortunately.
Well, the most Mardi Gras thing I've ever done, was the big cabaret show Gender Euphoria, which was it was, I believe it's like the largest all trans and gender diverse cast, at least in Australia. And we performed at Sydney World Pride, when all the queers from all over the world came to Sydney. We've done it in the State Theatre in Melbourne. It's been done in one of the Spiegel tents. It's been absolutely huge. There's a couple of poems that show all right for that, so um, I'll do the short one with those as my closing poem today. It's called Why I Cried Watching David Attenborough. There is a species of oceanic dolphin known as the false killer whale. In Latin, Pseudorca crassidens, which means false killer whale with cracked teeth. Dear Pseudorca crassidens, I don't think you're false. I see you, maybe only on TV, but I see you, and I respect you for the animal you are, and I think your teeth are fine. You are a valid whale, your own dolphin, and you deserve a name which is all your own. To not live by comparison to an orca who's better known just because they have a gig at SeaWorld. You are not a false killer whale, not some cut-rate free willy. You are a valid whale and a genuine killer of squid and fish and other dolphins too. Okay, I don't know about that specifically as a life choice, but it's your life, babe. You do you. And don't be ashamed to claim your place in the marine food chain, because you are a legitimate cetacean, a whale, real and true. Do you not press the same waves? Do you not sing in the same deep? Do you not do the thing? You do. And the sea is for you as much as it is for any creature. Oh, and if you see them, tell the sperm whales that they deserve better too. Be Pseudorca, you deserve a name which does not throw you shame, because your life and your wildness are not safe, and not even Attenborough's dulcet tones can tell you your identity is not your own. Yours sincerely, with love, from me, a woman.
That is amazing. So here's a fun fact. In the 90s, or up until about the 90s, SeaWorld actually had quite a few false killer whales in on display there. Yeah, with the dolphins, and they were amazing creatures, just beautiful. They didn't perform like the dolphins did, but they had quite a few in the tank, and the SeaWorld divers used to jump in there and swim around with them and do things like that. They were beautiful, yeah. But they don't
Yeah,
have them
they're
anymore.
beautiful animals.
Sorry?
But when we did that show where I performed that poem, we had a photographer from, oh God, I think she was for the New York Times or something. I don't think we ended up in the New York Times, but we had the photographer there anyway, in case. And she took a bunch of photos of the show, but then she saw me do the poem, and she had done a time like photographing false killer whales out in Tahiti, like on the South Pacific, and so she sent me all these beautiful photos that she'd taken like underwater and stuff.
Oh wow.
Of the animals and stuff. They're just like,
Yeah.
they are gorgeous,
Yeah,
and they're their own creature.
I was fortunate enough to see them many times in SeaWorld, but now sadly they don't have them there, which is disappointing.
I've never seen one, so now I'm gonna have to. Now you give me homework. I have to go look up and see what a false killer whale looks like.
They
They do look quite a lot like killer whales.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Okay.
And they're a bit bigger than dolphins, but not as big as the orcas and so forth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And they're like a carnivorous dolphin.
Yeah.
But I was just like,
Yeah.
that's really. I watched a lot of David Attenborough when I was in lockdown. I was like really struck by David Attenborough like talking about these and like calling these whales false. And I'm like, God, you're not false.
I love
You want?
I love the line, the punchline at the end. It was soft, but I heard it. You're not a false killer whale, you're a whale and I'm a woman.
Yeah.
I really love that. It's almost like undressing a metaphor, an extended metaphor. And this is what the metaphor is about. I am not a false killer whale. Thank you. That was a transparent piece. Thank you so much for that.
And I think it also showcases the width of topics that you can write on as well. As you said, watching something like that Attenborough and to come up with that, and that's turning something like that just from that name again into a powerful underlying message. And yes, that ending was perfect. You know, that was amazing. Nikki, thank you from the bottom of my heart for agreeing to come on the show and being here. I know 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning for us in Australia is a bit early because normally we've had a big Friday night. It's for these guys, it's Friday night, 6 p.m. Right? I can't wait for daylight savings to come back on so I get a couple more hours sleep because then it's 10 p.m. for me, right? When I get up further ahead. And to everybody in the room who's come and been through, and any those who'd probably watched the replay or the YouTube video or that listen to the podcast, thank you. You know, your participation in the room really brings a lot to the show. And Nikki, the 2 hours has just flown through. Honestly, I could do another 2 hours. You've just been such an interesting conversationalist. Your work's phenomenal. I could sit here all day long listening to your recitals, and your work's phenomenal. I love it. I can't wait till the next show that you do in Melbourne because I'll be there getting tickets ASAP and coming over, and also hanging out at the open mics as well again. So yeah, for selfish reasons, can't wait for you to get back to Melbourne. And Gemini, as always, thank you, my friend. It's been a great episode 31. And we just keep bringing on the quality of features. Just the show just gets better and better and better each week. You know, from when we started, it's just grown, and I think it's good. As I said before, you never know who listens to the podcast. And Nikki, like I wish for all our features on this show, I wish the right people hear or see it and reach out to them, and their careers just fly. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Nikki, thank you so much for sharing your poetry with us and sharing the background of some of those pieces. And I love your authenticity. Absolutely love your authenticity.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I look forward to hearing more of your work. I might have a reason to brave all of the ferocious creatures in Australia and come visit now because I'm finding more and more reasons. I'm sorry, your country has like the most deadly animals in the world.
Look, even the birds attack you here, and I love birds, but they do die for me.
Yes.
I'm staying in the country for a moment. Like the other day we came out and there was like a giant snake that just left some snake skin on the garden path. There was just like a big shed python skin on the garden path. I'm sorry. Australia is like, however, there's always something going on with the animals. I love them. There's always something going on with them.
You're someone's gonna have to put me on their shoulder. No, I can't, because the magpies are gonna get me from on someone's shoulders. Oh, okay. We're gonna think about. We're gonna discuss this a little bit more, because like you see, I was ready to jump and start preparing and start saving for a ticket and think about what wardrobe to create, because I make clothing. But now you talk about the snake skin, and then the magpies attacking you, and it's winter over there, and they're still attacking.
No,
Well,
it's like the magpies only dive bomb at a particular time of year. It's only, and they don't always. Like it depends on the vibe they get off you, and like whether they're currently nesting
like
and stuff like that.
fresh
So
Caribbean meat. Oh, she's fresh Caribbean meat. Let's dive bomb her. No bears. Okay. Well, that's a plus. No.
no, there's no bears. And in defense of this giant snake, the big pythons like they don't bother you. They just sort of hang out. I haven't come across it yet. Live, but they're actually pretty pleasant.
Okay.
Yeah, they can be quite big. The only thing is, if there's a skin in the pathway, that means the body that left that skin must be somewhere around close by.
Okay. Okay. With that, Rainier, thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Look, I have goosebumps and I'm nowhere near y'all. Thank you so much for all the hard work that you do in the background. Thank you for getting the show on different platforms. Thank you for putting up with me, because you see, he laughs, but he wants to say something. Thank you for putting up with me and for making every guest feel phenomenal. I really appreciate you.
It's a pleasure, Stephanie. I think when we started on this journey of creating this show, I think and I think, like together we work really well, right? You've introducing people from your circles there. I mean, you're very active in the spoken word area and performing weekly or monthly sort of shows and hosting shows and all that, and bringing them on here, and now me being able to meet people within my own locality like Nikki and so forth, and Tariro Mwando that we had before Christmas. Yeah, Tariro I featured on here probably just around Christmas time, I think it was, and she was phenomenal. So I'm really looking forward. Yeah.
Yeah.
So really looking forward to bringing more and more of the local talent, and introducing people from here to people over there and vice versa, like, and showcasing the work that's done over in the US to over here and vice versa. We've each got our own flavors, slight little differences, the way they perform, but overall, like, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
it's
already
good.
found someone that I would want to pair you with if I had a show and so it was a live show.
Onyx to God.
Nikki, no live show in person. I don't know what country it would be in, somewhere neutral, because between the human predators here in the United States and the non-human predators there in Australia. But no, I already have someone in mind. When you started speaking and sharing, Charles Hines, I heard Charles come through, and Charles is absolutely amazing. He's in the poetry slam right now at Southern Fried, which is one of the largest poetry competitions in the United States. So definitely, there were two poets I heard, Jamie Dawson and Charles Hines. When it came to like your words, so I'd love to meet you in person. I'm not gonna like drag this out because I say long goodbyes. I can't help it. Thank you so much for coming, Nikki, and thank you for sharing the
You're
most
so welcome,
beautiful.
and I hope I get to meet you in person sometime soon.
Yes. I don't know. I'm gonna have to get her to come here. We have to go to Canada. Canada seems safe enough.
Canada's nice. I like Canada. I've been to Canada. It's good.
Okay, we have to talk to Ram, and we'll have to go ahead and meet in Canada.
Good deal.
Nikki, thank you. Thank you to the audience. Thank you, Gemini. And actually, Gemini, we will talk because we do bring sometimes two people together that really complement each other as well, you know. So next week, actually, we've got Ram and his childhood friend Kanil, who separated when one migrated to the US, and then the other migrated to the US, and they're like rekindle that friendship, and they do a lot of lives. And so next week we've featured each of them individually, and now next week we're featuring them both together because Ram's just released a book as well. So like that, if you know, Gemini, if you think, you know, I would have thought. As said, yeah, Charles Hines or Onyx and so forth. I think, yeah.
Onyx. Okay, let me stop. We'll talk afterwards, but
Yes.
and Nikki, I'm going to send you the profiles for the people that he mentioned. Onyx to God, Charles Hines and Jamie Dawson. I'll send you their profiles, but when I go to shows in person, I love taking video of the poets while they're sharing the poetry, and then I tag them or send it to them, because a lot of us, we go to shows and we don't have anyone to take video of us. So I love doing that. It brings me joy and it makes them happy. So I'll share some of their work with you as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
You're
yeah, hopefully we'll get you back on again, Nikki, if it works for you, that is. I know you're busy as well, but do stay in touch. As I said, this is just the first time, not the last time, right?
Okay. Well, I'll see you in a open mic in Melbourne at some point.
For sure. But
In a
stay
room
in
full of
touch.
poets.
Yeah, stay. Thank you all. Stay safe, stay blessed. Thank you, Gemini. Thank you, Nikki.
Ciao.
Thank you to everyone. Stay
Bye.
safe.
Bye, love.